In the April newsletter, we are talking about boxes, and this will be an ongoing series. So, this is part one. So, we're going to first talk about kind of the basic box, right? So, as far as this is kind of what you see, one, two, three piece of equipment on each side, and this can be with jumps, hoops. As we continue the series, you're going to, we'll talk about boxes that include contacts, weave pulls, tunnels, all that sort of stuff. But for this one, we're going to start with the quote unquote kind of simple one, two, three going straight through a box. Now, when it comes to handling a box, number one, your dog needs to, really have their directionals fully understood. And what I mean by that is, we talked about it in a previous video within the community, is that for your dog, for me and my dogs, go means for them to maintain their current path, right? So if my dogs are coming straight over this number one jump, go would mean for them to continue going in a straight manner over one, two, and three, with me supporting that with my body language, right? Um, but if you are using, out to maintain a straight line, because your dog is always want to kind of orient towards you, they're always, taking a jump and then turning towards you. If you're trying to use out to get over one, two, three, well, that has a very distinct possibility of kicking them out over this, side jump over here, or just making, getting through this box way more difficult than it should be. The biggest thing with this kind of box, this very traditional square box, is you as a handler choosing where to go. Now, you have a couple of different options. Your main two would be coming to the inside of the box. So you would be on the inside of this jump right here, or coming to the outside and layering that jump. And they both have their pros and cons. I personally like to layer. And the reason for that is because I know that when I get close to pieces of equipment, I get a little claustrophobic. And I also know that it is something I need to work on, but it is not my strong suit. So if I'm in a trial, I'm going to pad my deck and play to my strong suit, right? Now, a con of coming to the inside here is that when you are in this little hole right here, right, you're in this box with your dog, when your dog is here next to you, remember your dog responds to space. They respond to your body pressure. So if you, you're running up here and then you kind of do this to get around this outside jump, that body pressure is going to send your dog out, which could inevitably send them out over that jump. So when you are in the inside, of the box like this, you want to be very mindful that, my little diagram here, his arms are out. But if your arms are out when you're running through this box, again, very distinct possibility of shoving them over that outside jump. No different than if you are, running into the middle of this box and you start to hesitate, or you rotate your shoulders, or you do anything because you feel like your dog is going over here to the outside. So you start to rotate, well, then you could easily bring them to the inside. Your pressure is really strong when you're in here. So if you're coming to the inside of this box, even though it's quote unquote, for some handlers and dogs, it may feel easier because you're not having to layer this jump, your pressure will have a lot more play in here. So any sort of little twitch out that way, especially if your dog is sensitive to pressure, could very easily send them over that jump. So I personally like to layer, and it has its pros and cons. The pro being my pressure is not as strong over here. So if my dog is going through the box and I happen to do this, is there still a pretty good possibility of my dog kicking over to that outside jump? Absolutely. But it is less of a chance with me over here layering with a jump in between us, because my bubble, my pressure, is not going to be as strong. So I prefer layering for that reason. Now, the con of layering is just like if I'm in here and my pressure can kick, the dog to outside jump. If I'm layering and I release too much pressure, I rotate my shoulders, let's say I misjudge my handling path and I'm going to run into this jump. So I do this, that can all pull my dog to the inside. So each method has its pros and cons for how to get through this box. The biggest trick that I tell my students, and I have to tell myself whenever I'm getting ready to go through a box type setup like this, is look where you want your dogs to go. if you are worried about this outside jump and you're looking at it, chances are your body's going to follow. Where your eyes go, your body follows, and you'll start to drift, right? So you want to maintain that connection with your dog, right? You don't want to be up here ahead of them and not looking at them, not connecting, but you should be looking forward, arm in front of your body to drive them forward and looking at that number 3 jump, right? um as we go through the series, I will talk more about different box layouts, more advanced ones, different obstacles. We will also discuss a little bit about handling boxes like this from more of a vertical distance, and how handling the boxes from behind has its own set of challenges. If you go to last month's newsletter, which would be the March newsletter, and then also on the Fluid Motion YouTube page, you will see where I talked about sends. And if you go back and read that article and watch those videos, and if you're in the community or the coaching group, I also did videos and live chats on that. Is those send exercises we worked on the last newsletter, that will come into play when we start doing this, when we start adding, box type setups with, jumps on either side or pieces of equipment, and your dog having that strong send with you from behind. And as we learned in the last newsletter, how to set yourself to the side, right? So you're at, kind of off laterally and behind your dog, so you're able to kind of apply that pressure as needed to get up to number 3. If you have any questions about this, you want to chat about going through boxes, you want more info, as well as exclusive info that I always post into the community, you can check out the community at www.fluidmotioncommunity.com.